I'm Deidre Malone, and you're watching Dialogue with Deidre on the M1 TV network. So glad that you're here with me today. And on this network, we have a great interview in the studio today. If you're in Memphis, you've seen him on TV. He is the leader, the 11th leader of Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, Mr. J.T. Young. Welcome to Dialogue with Deidre.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, how long have you been in Memphis now?
Well, it's about 15 months, so a year in March. So it's been about 15 months. It's just been flying by. So
I know it has.
So but it's been great.
You walked in the door, though, JT, with a number of challenges. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, so I think most of my time, but besides, I'm trying to get to know, folks on the team. Right. We've got some great employees, and been trying to get to know all of them as best I can. Make sure we're delivering on the things that we need to do, what I call the blocking and tackling, doing the day-to-day business of delivering services and delivering what we like to say is exceptional customer value, and making sure that customers get that from us. Did some realignment internally from an organizational standpoint.
So you have a C-suite now.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, of course, with that has come, kind of looking over our budget, looking at our infrastructure, looking at what are some of the things we need to do to continue to be able to deliver on those things. And then, we've got, of course, this whole notion of the power supply issue that's out there. That's been consuming a lot of time. So, but it's never a dull moment. I don't get bored at all.
Well, let me just say, infrastructure, I understand, is a major problem for Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. As someone who lives in Midtown, owns a business in Midtown, I don't know how many times my transformer blows, yeah. Mr. Young. What's going on with infrastructure?
Well, so as with anything, from an electric standpoint and water and gas, and we shared this with our board and with the city council in the last several months, we do have some upgrading that we need to do. We've been doing maintenance, routine maintenance. When something breaks, we fix it. We've been doing those things for years. Folks have been doing a tremendous job on keeping things together and keeping them running. But like with anything, with your car or your home, there are times when you have to do what I call an overhaul of certain things, certain major equipment. And so part of what we'd like to do, and we really still need to do internally, is make sure that with regards to our electrical, and in particular electrical and water infrastructure, we need to do some major investment just to make things better. We'd like to do some automation on our electric side so that we can have shorter durations of outages and fewer outages, hopefully, for customers. We need to do some upgrades at some of our pumping stations. There's some things that we just, as we look our hand over, we've got, 60-year-old on average. Our pumping stations are about 60 years old, 58, 60 years old. And then we have a lot of major electric equipment out in our substations that's older than that. So we're at that point now. We're just praying for, I've said this before, praying for a few storms, if any, this summer, and so we can get past this summer without very many outages.
So in the last 5 years or so, you've invested a lot of money in trying to upgrade what you have, over $200 million.
Right. $245 million.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you had a magic wand and you had the dollars needed for infrastructure upgrades, what could that dollar figure look like?
Well, what we presented last year was a 5-year plan, and that 5-year plan totaled roughly $730 million, and that was kind of an all-in number. That included some bond issues that we were going to do, plus rate increases. But that was also for all, electric, gas, and water. But about 65% or so of our system is electric, so the bulk of that would, of course, gone towards the electric system. And it's not just infrastructure, too. One thing I'll mention is that, Memphis, I've said this, and I had to correct myself, but I said, Memphis is a shady town.
Oh, shady how?
And when I say that, I'm talking about all the trees. There's a lot of trees in Memphis. I didn't mean it to come across. But in reality, one of the things we want to do was increase our tree trimming budget, because we know that trees are the largest cause of outages, certainly outside of storms. And even when we have storms, you get a lot of tree activity going on. It's going to create issues, whether it's hitting the lines or sometimes trees. This happened a couple of weeks ago. We had a tree come down, pull down a line in several poles.
My goodness.
So we know that that's a major issue, and we've got to get ourselves back to What we'd like to see is about a 3-year tree trim cycle. We're not there yet, not really close, so we have to invest a little bit more in that. But those are just some basic things that we think would certainly help our customers have a better experience. Look, one thing I tell people, you're going to have outages.
Right.
There's no magic wand that you can wave that does away with outages overall, but you can certainly minimize them and increase what I call the resilience of our system by doing some of the things that we'd like to get done internally.
Do you feel like you're doing a good job of explaining that need to the public as well as our city council?
You know, I tell you this, and I've said this before, city council folks, I admire, they're in a tough spot. They've got difficult decisions to make about a lot of things.
Right.
We, of course, first go to our board, and our board actually is our sort of a first approval authority, and then we take their recommendations to the city council, which we did. And they're trying to balance a number of things. We have been, spending a lot of time in the community doing what we call power hours. And we've got the next one coming up on June the 20th at 6 p.m. down at the MLGW division office on Main Street. That's going to be at 6 p.m. on June 20th. And but we've been trying to bring our community up to speed on what's going on with regards to our infrastructure and the separate issue of power supply and other things that we think would be of interest to them. Because what we want to make sure everyone understands is that, and I think people get it, it's really more about, that's not the what, it's the how.
Right.
When it comes to, covering the cost for all those things. It is not an easy thing to do. I know that I've been in the industry almost 40 years, and this is never an easy thing to do when it's time to make this kind of investment. But at the end of the day, just like I said, with your car, with your home, there comes a time when you really have to start doing some things that you would consider not just routine maintenance, but you got to do some major things.
But the utility has been pretty steady in terms of you've not asked for an increase in, it's been a minute, or received one.
Right, so in 2017, actually February of 2018, we were granted the approval of a 2% increase in electric and gas that went into effect in July of last year. But you got to remember, before that, it had been about 10 years.
That's what I thought.
Before there were any increases in on the electric side. So you had a long period of time where we had to absorb cost increases for materials and labor and all of that, which is admirable. And I've been involved with utilities that have done that. And one thing that I know is that by virtue of the reality of how our business works, there's going to come a time when you just kind of run out of things. You can only squeeze this this turnip so much, and you're going to have to figure out a way to really make some investments. And what you also need to help folks understand is if it's of value, if something is of value, there's going to be a cost.
Right.
And what we have to remember, and we do a number of things. I've never worked in a utility that has so many programs to assist our customers in making bill payments. MLGW, way before I got here, so kudos to all the former leaders and current employees and others. They just did a great job being sensitive to the needs of this community, making sure that we can accommodate folks, helping them with whether it's weatherization, bill payments, all those things. And so they've done a great job. And one of the things we have to, though, recognize is at some point, if it's of value, it's not going to be free, and we're going to have to make those adjustments. And what we wanted to do was to phase in some of these increases over time, give people a chance to prepare, plan, etc., before we did it. And that's something that I think is important, so people will not be hit with something all at once, but they can think about it and plan for it.
So full transparency, I own the Carter Malone Group, and TVA is my client. And they have been, Memphis Light, Gas, and Water has been a major client of theirs for over 80 years.
Yes.
And so it looks like the new president's been in town at least 3 times, really trying to get the pulse of Memphis and what they can do to try and keep their largest client. And I know that MLGW is going through the process of looking at other potential suppliers. What does that look like in terms of, what are you looking for?
So now we'll shift gears away from internal infrastructure. I call this, what we've been talking about to this point is what I call inside the park stuff. Now we're talking about what's outside the fence,
Right.
which is the TVA supply. And one of the things that we're trying to do is we've initiated a process called an IRP, or an integrated resource plan. In the utility industry, we do integrated resource plans, particularly in utilities that have generation, their own generation supply. We do not have our own generation. This plan that we're going through, this process that we're going through, might reveal to us that we should have our own generation, but we don't know that yet. And so what we've done is we've assembled a team. We call it the PSAT, the Power Supply Advisory Team, about 20 folks from across the community. And they'll be giving us input along these next several months as we go through this process. We're in the process of also getting a consultant on board that will be able to direct us through that. We've had 2 meetings. We got a 3rd meeting coming up on Thursday of this week, on the 16th. No, that's not right. Whatever, the 6th of June.
The 6th.
There you go. June the 6th at the Ben Hooks Library is our 3rd meeting of this group. They're providing input to us, though, and ultimately we will get with our board and make a decision. So if the input at the end of this process is that we need to do something other than purchase wholesale power from TVA, if that's the recommendation, that goes to our board, and then our board will decide how to put that in form of a resolution to take down to City Council. We are in a contract now with Tennessee Valley Authority that requires a 5-year notification prior to exit. And one thing that's really, really important, there are a number of really, really important things. One of those, though, is that if we ever get to the point where we put TVA on notice, and for example, we decide this time next year we're going to be leaving TVA. If that ever happened, we have to presume that we have no recourse with TVA. We have to presume that once which is why we're being very deliberate. TVA has been very reliable. Their costs have been relatively low. You look across the country. So we have really what I call something very dependable. It's been, from the outside the fence standpoint, we've not really had reliability issues with TVA. All our reliability issues are internal, inside the fence. So we want to measure twice and cut once on that decision. We don't want to just just haphazardly say that, because once we say to them we're going another direction, they need to make some plans, and we need to make some plans, and we have a 5-year window to do that. So we have to be very, very deliberate in this process, and we are. And I think you mentioned earlier the new CEO, Jeff Lyash, has been over a few times. So we've met. We've been very open with them. They've been, in fact, even before Jeff came on board with Bill Johnson, I was very candid with him about our intentions. We want to maintain the integrity of this process. We're going to carry it to fruition. We're not doing this just to get TVA to come to the table and offer us something better. I mean, that's not the objective. And ultimately, we want to do what's best for our customers and the citizens of this community, and that's what we're planning to do.
Well, that's what happens in business. I mean, there's cycles. Every 5 years or so, people look to what makes sense, what's more cost effective. So it's really going to be a business decision at the end of the day.
This process, and the way this business decision is made in the utility industry which is why we have this group giving us input, is you want to make sure you have the input from the community, because this is a long-term decision.
Right.
So we're looking out 20 years. What's going to be the energy needs, electricity needs for the Shelby County area for the next 20 years? What are the considerations we need to bake into this cake? What should we do on renewables? What should we do on generation, other types of generation? How should we make sure that we get the proper transmission supply? Should we be should we own it or not own it? I mean, so there are a number of very, very important decisions that we have to make that are very consequential. And once you make the decisions that we're trying to make, it's generally irreversible. And that's why I say, you measure twice and cut once, because you make the decision, you make the investment, you start going down that line, you're pretty much in it, and it's hard to come back out. So we're going to look at it and do it the right way and get input, be transparent. Look forward to making a good decision, if that's to stay with what we've got or enhance what we have or do something different. Once we get to the end of the process, we'll be able to make that.
Well, it looks like you're doing a really good job of making sure that the public understands everything that you're going through right now and the decision that you have to make. And it's a good thing in terms of asking them what they think.
Absolutely. They have to be a part of this.
So, final thought on, want to wrap this up. How has it been being in Memphis this short period of time that you've been here? And has your beautiful wife, Deidre, D-E-I-D-R-E,
Yes.
enjoyed being here?
Yeah, we've been blessed. This has been great. We, of course, our sons are adults now, and so it's just the two of us. And so
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, so we moved here not knowing a soul, no relatives, had never been to Memphis. I think I came through the airport once several years ago, but didn't really know anyone. We have been welcomed with open arms and just very hospitable. Folks have been very, very pleasant. We could not have asked for a more welcoming community in which to integrate. She's gotten involved with a Rise to Read, and she's been engaged in that process already over at La Rose Elementary. I'm going to try to get involved in that as a backup because of my schedule, but we're used to being involved in things like that in the community. So she's already jumped into that. Anything educational, she wants to be involved in that. But we just have found this to be a great community, great culture, a lot of interesting, I've learned a lot about the history that I never knew about Memphis. That's just fascinating. A lot more for me to learn. And I got to just tell you on a side note, the food is great. It's not just the barbecue. I tell people all the time when I go back, I'm like, this is not just barbecue. Memphis barbecue is great, but Memphis food is great.
It's just incredible.
Oh my gosh, Memphis food is great. I'm trying to maintain the weight I had when I got here. This is hard, but I'm gonna make it. We're gonna do it. Maybe. But it's been blessed. We've been very blessed.
Well, we're so glad you're here. Thanks so much for coming and being on Dialogue with Deidre, JT.
Thank you.
President, CEO of Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. You've been watching the Dialogue with Deidre show, M1 TV Network. Follow us on social media and make sure that you go to the MLGW website. Follow them on social media so you can know what's going on with your local utility. Thanks so much for watching. Hi, I'm Deidre Malone, the host of Dialogue with Deidre. You can find us on the M1 TV Network on YouTube. Subscribe and follow us. You can also find us on Facebook at M1 TV Network, Twitter, M1 TV Network 2, and Instagram, M1 TV Network 2. Please follow us so you can keep up to date with what's going on the M1 TV Network with Dialogue with Deidre and Black Thought.